rock and rollers. This is DJ Will here at my show on Total Rock Radio. Joining me on the phone are two gentlemen that have a history here in the LA music scene, one of which is a long-tenured musician, journalist, and we'll get into what he's currently working on. One gentleman who played drums in a band that I saw in my youth. This was a project that has its origins in the 2020 unfortunate pandemic zombie apocalypse. As I was going through my records one day, having a lot of free time, as we all did during that period, I came across a 4-song EP that I obtained. It occurred to me, whatever happened to the shock rock band The Wild? Again, this 4-song EP was on Azra Records, and joining me on the phone is Ali, a.k.a. James Nitro, on drums. Also joining me is Bruce Duff. You can go to bruceduffmusic.com. He has some history with the band that I'd like to have him interject as we go through. So, Ali, I want to thank you and Bruce for joining me on this, like I said, a bit of a passion project. Tell me about the band, the stage names, the costumes, the overall concept. Give me the origins of The Wild from your perspective.
Well, good to be here. Thank you, William, and good talking to you, Bruce.
Yep.
I met the fellas from The Wild from an ad in the Recycler, and so I met up with them at a studio in North Hollywood, and one thing led to another, and I ended up becoming part of The Wild as their drummer. But at that time, I had no idea that we were dressing up. So I thought I was just playing in a regular hard rock band. And I didn't know for a long time that we were dressing up. And then once we got all our songs going and stuff, then they brought it on and said, hey, this is what we're going to be looking like. You know, we want to stand out. We want to be original, because there's so many hair metal bands out there that they wanted to stick out. So that's kind of how that happened.
Bruce, the many projects that you were in the early 80s, what were your connections with The Wild?
Well, a slightly similar origin there in that Ray Violet, who ended up being my partner in Jesters of Destiny still to this day, and we met through I'm pretty sure it was the Recycler as well, and he had a band called Sleeping Beauty, and we started rehearsing together and getting the thing going. We rehearsed in a place called Wada Pro, which was on Cahuenga above Two Guys Pizza. It was an office. It was this guy, Chuck Wada, had this like floor of offices, and bands would rent them, and it was just literally an empty office, and you'd drag up a PA and leave your amps there, and so it was lockout. There were quite a few well-known bands up there, the Bangs before they turned into the Bangles, the Long Riders were up there, Shadow Project, a lot of early kind of indie rock LA bands, and The Wild was up there, and we were Sleeping Beauty at that time. We hadn't mutated into the Jesters yet. So that's how we got to know. They were exactly right across the hall from us, and we'd always bump into them. We seemed to practice at the same time, and just got to know the guys and really liked what they were doing.
Do you remember that I played the drums with you at, I think it was the Woodstock or Radio City in Anaheim?
Whoa. With which band?
Well, I don't know if you were with 45 Grave that night or with some other guys.
It wasn't 45 Grave. We already had two drummers.
Okay.
I don't know. I do remember the club.
Yeah.
Boy, that was a long time ago. Shoot.
Yeah, it was.
Other than that aspect, did you perform with them on the same stage at any point?
I don't think so. But we became intertwined with the band in a number of ways. For one thing, both of us, I just pulled out my copy of the record, we are the first two thank yous on the record, which is sort of funny. So I've been hit up with interviews about The Wild, and how the late Howie Pyro contacted me and goes, how were you connected to this? Like, it is something that has come up a number of times. And the two main ways is because I was writing for magazines, I got him in a couple papers. I'm pretty sure I got him in both BAM and Music Connection. And with Sleeping Beauty, Ray had gotten us on this compilation record I think it was called Metal Warriors or something like that. I don't think there was a single metal band on it. Maybe Jag Panzer was on it. But anyway, so that was on Azra. And so we got to know the Azure guy, Dave Richards. And when I got to know the Wild, I was like, you guys should talk to Dave Richards. I think he's going to get what you're doing. And all his releases are picture discs. You're a perfect band for a picture disc. And it just sort of fell together for them. And meanwhile, Ray would do their sound live.
Okay, or did he really? Okay.
Yeah, and I would tell you, they did this thing at Mars Studio, which used to be this rehearsal room off of Melrose. And it was just, it wasn't a very big room, but they did a showcase in there and had all these invited people. And I don't know if Ray was trying to be sinister or what, but it was this way up there at Motorhead level for the size of the room. It was like at the time, like one of the loudest things I'd ever endured.
Yes, and with the volume, that is one of the main things, Ali, that I recall from a lot of those early shows. I mean, besides the crazy costumes and the name, it was the volume. Because, I'm there for the entertainment. I'm there for the spectacle. I'm not worried about earplugs. I'm like, I'll be fine when I get older.
I definitely lost some hearing from that.
All told, how many performances did the band have before kind of calling it the day?
That's a real good question. We played quite a few clubs. We played the Café de Graham, the Troubadour, Madame Wong's, a couple of the places over in Anaheim, Radio City, Mars. I would say at least maybe 15 to 20.
Beyond the EP, you had stated that there is a cassette recording from Madame Wong.
That's right. I have this cassette somewhere around here, and I don't know if it was Bruce Duff or Ray or maybe Chuck Wada who did the recording, but it was a live gig, and it's around here somewhere. So I do have a cassette from Madame Wong's West.
So a potential future project, maybe get it transferred if time permits?
Absolutely. And also I wanted to mention that the two brothers that were in the band, Spiderweb and Rick Storm, they got their pyrotechnics license just so we could have fire and explosions on stage. So they and got their license for that.
Really? Yeah. And again, for people that don't know, these are clubs, these are small venues where this would never take place. Like if this were the Plasmatics or the early Wasp shows of what they did with fire and other places, there would be permits upon permits and, to even get these things signed off on. But that was another thing I'd forgotten about, the pyro.
Well, it was pre-Great White. So bands, even though they did it the correct way by getting a license, bands were going haywire with fire and stuff and just getting away with it. That's just the way it was back then.
Yeah. And that's the thing that stood out because, when you put an ad, in Band Magazine and you say, LA's most outrageous band, well, you got to deliver on that. You just can't throw that out there willy-nilly. It's like, let's see what's going on here. And that's exactly what we got. So you were talking about standing out between the melee of just all the bands on the Sunset Strip. Does any video exist of any of your performances? Does any possible beta or VHS?
As far as I know, I would say no. But when I spoke to Spider Webb a couple years ago, he's in Arizona, he says he has a bunch of stuff in his garage. And he still needs to go through it. And I was hoping that we would have some pictures or something from the Troubadour shows, because those were our big shows where we had the big Wild sign behind us, and those were our best shows, I think. I'll try and contact him again and see if he can dig some stuff up.
I don't know if my memory serves correct. Did you guys ever play the Lingerie?
Not that I recall.
Well, the reason I asked is because they had, I can't remember his name, Video Bob or something, but they had a guy who literally videotaped everybody, and you could buy it from him for nominal fee and get a fairly pro-looking live tape. And if you played there, you probably would have one.
Yeah. I did talk to the owner's daughter of the Troubadour a little while back, within the year, and she says they don't have anything. Any pictures or anything like that. So I don't think they have, I don't think they kept a lot of records from the early 80s there. So I'll reach out again to the brothers and see if we can dig something up, because I know there's a lot of good stuff that they may have.
There was another cat named Sleaze Grinder. I don't know if you know who he is, but he writes about a lot of obscure, weird rock and roll stuff. And he contacted me, and he actually did a chapter in a book about the Wild and got a lot of info from me, so you might want to look it up. You can find it on Amazon, but the book is called Lovers, Buggers, and Thieves, and the whole book is pretty good. It's got all kinds of fun musical stuff in it. But there's a chapter on the Wild.
Definitely of the curiosity factor for those that were not present during those early shows, just to sort of give you a little glimpse, a little time capsule of what the Wild, the Los Angeles, the Wild were all about. When you mentioned the owner of the Troubadour, are you referring to Doug Weston, Allie?
No. I spoke to a young lady, and she had mentioned that they don't have anything.
Yeah, when did Doug Weston stop being the guy? I mean, he retired somewhere in the 80s, but I don't remember exactly where.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that either, because he was sort of obviously a presence and a fixture at the venue, but then he stopped showing up, he stopped being there, and then he sort of put all his energies elsewhere before, retired. But it's a good question. Definitely sometime in that era. After the Wild, did you join or form another outfit, or did you just pursue other interests?
I went a totally different direction. I was working in the mailroom at a big insurance company in Los Angeles while I was in the Wild, and I got my insurance license, and I've been selling life insurance since 1985, so 36 years or so, and I just retired a year and a half ago, but I still take care of my clientele that I've built up over the years. So that's what I do. I mean, I give a lot of time in terms of volunteer work. I volunteer, my wife and I volunteer a lot at church, and I volunteer also for the city of Los Angeles as well. Some of the people that I've spoken to, other bands, people that have seen our shows and stuff, they still remember it. And the last gig that we had was when we played with Stryper.
Oh, really?
Where was that?
That was at Radio City. I think
Where
it was
that?
April.
Where was that?
Corner of Knott Avenue and Cerritos Avenue, I think it is.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And yeah, and that's where Metallica started, and a lot of bands over at Radio City. It was real popular back then. I had no idea, about Orange County back then, because I was an LA kid, and then lo and behold, I ended up moving to Orange County, and I passed by that area all the time.
Yeah, there was Radio City, Jezebel came later, a handful of places where sort of a mainstay for the Orange County bands, like Leatherwolf and Stripe, of course, and when they were Rock's Regime and whatnot. So interesting. Now, Bruce obviously is quite active in music, and everything that you're doing now, obviously quite the 180, but I admire the fact that you do not downplay your history. And even though it's just a footprint on the LA music scene, for me, and a young, impressionable young Will, it was kind of a big deal, because the shock rock eras of, with Kiss and Alice Cooper and Arthur Brown and all the things that, even Bowie to a certain extent, I witnessed quite a bit of all that. I had to go to the big arena, to the big venues to see those artists. But with yourself, I just appreciated what you were doing visually, because some artists want to move on.
Yeah, it was a good time. I was a young guy. I was 20, 21, 22 years old. I wouldn't trade it in, for anything. It was a time where we were growing, and the music scene was real happening, and it's not like it is today. So I'm glad that I was a part of that, and I'm glad that I ran into Bruce Duff as well.
Yeah, that was the whole place that we rehearsed at. It was really fun, and we would show up at the pizza joint downstairs, and I think they had a Frogger game or something, and we'd sit there and play that, have some pizza, go up and practice. We weren't on any kind of schedule because it was our room, and we'd always see everybody up. There was like a little community. It was very cool. One thing, getting to know the guys out of makeup and wigs, that I like to point out, and because it always kind of baffled me, the two brothers were not just brothers. They were the single most identical twins I've ever met in my entire life. And you could literally, and Ray will tell you the same thing, you never were quite sure which one you were talking to. And they were that close. And they kind of always dressed the same. They had the same haircut. I mean, it was uncanny. To the point where they told me once, yeah, sometimes we trade off girlfriends. And I was just like, oh, fuck. I mean, I'm like, yeah, they could do it. And no one would know. It was just, it was beyond belief. And I always kind of wondered, why wasn't that part of the get-up? Why didn't that get folded into the way the band looked instead of them taking on these two very different identities with different looks? Why didn't they just make themselves look identical and freak everyone out?
You know what? I was talking to William about that, Bruce, and I'm thinking because they were identical that they wanted to look different.
Well, yeah, it was probably something for their own enjoyment, I'm sure of that. But it just always seemed like the most insanely perfect built-in gimmick of all time. It was, I mean, if you'd have seen them out of their outfits, Will, you'd have flipped out. I mean, it was like two guys came out of a Stamper or something. They were so alike. Yeah. Were you guys pretty adamant about, like, when you were at shows, not really letting people, like Kiss, like you don't let people see what you look like out of the outfits?
Yeah, that is a good question. You know what? I don't know if we actively did that, but I think it just kind of happened that way. You know, we showed up early enough and left late enough that we kind of weren't getting any attention before and after. So I don't know if that was part of it or not, but yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have any idea what we looked like once we got out of our makeup and all that kind of stuff.
Hey, do you know what happened to Johnny Rat, the lead guitar player? So was the first guitarist I ever knew that had a rat pedal, and his name was Johnny Rat. So I was very impressed by that.
Well, and you know what? He was a very good guitar player.
Yeah, he could well.
All the guys were really proficient with their instruments. I'll give them that. You know, the last time I saw him, and I think he still owns a gas station. I think he's owned that for like 35 years. Right.
Do I roll in and go, it's Johnny Rat around? You know, get out of here, loser. I could hear that.
Yeah, Bruce likes the alley. When he told me that, I'm like, well, I know the area, so at some point I will meticulously make a visit one day, confirm the identity, and ask if, would you sign my EP?
Both the brothers in Arizona?
I'm not sure. The last time I spoke to Spiderweb, he was like an IT guy over there, but we haven't connected since I've talked to him, and it's been probably about 3 years now.
It's cool you guys are still in touch, though. That's great.
Yeah, a little bit.
Allie and Bruce, this has been a very cool trip down memory lane, again, at least for a young, impressionable young kid taking the bus to go see the rock shows. Now, Allie, you have a bit of a social media footprint, and if anyone who wants to reach out and contact you,
James Nitro 83.
And Bruce, is there anything else you want to add? Because we're going to end with Get Wild Tonight.
Well, of course you are. No, the only thing that kind of ties it together for me is Ray Violet and I are still stubbornly making music, and which will probably be the fourth new album of all time, will be the final. And it comes out a week from tomorrow, which will probably be in the past by the time this makes it up on Will's site. But Jesters of Destiny, Distorting Everything on Ectro Records. Look for it everywhere.
All right, gentlemen, thank you both for your time. This was fun and much appreciated. 4-song EP, Azure Records, the lead-off track. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Wild. Get Wild Tonight.